All right, welcome to 10-minute Wellbeing Tips for Managers. If you could keep your microphone on mute, we will have time after the 10 minutes for question and answers. So last week we did a progressive muscle relaxation exercise, and we focused on the value of recognizing whether our muscles are tight. And if we could relax our muscles, it could also decrease our stress level. And this week, we're going to be talking about the importance of including well-being in the onboarding and orientation process. But first, we have a guest. I'd like to welcome Yvonne Mitchell, Executive Director of Talent Acquisition. And so Yvonne leads the team of people responsible for recruitment. And even though I said we're talking about well-being as it relates to orientation and onboarding, I'm going to ask Yvonne a couple of questions that are relevant, that are going to lead us into the rest of our program. So Yvonne, how difficult is it to attract new talent?
Wow, Rich, you've really asked the question of the year, haven't you? The short answer is it's harder than ever to recruit new employees right now. You may not know this, but during the pandemic, we actually lost 30% of the people who work in healthcare to other industries and their own small businesses. Like they opened Etsy shops and started doing things like professional gaming. When we look at our landscape today, we have twice as many positions open as we did 2 years ago. And we also have close to 40% less applicants than we did then. So short answer, it's super hard.
Wow, that sounds like a daunting task. We don't want to lose anybody because it's going to be hard to replacement. So how does well-being fit into recruitment?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I would say that it plays a huge part in it. Remember that every candidate that we get is interviewing us just like we're interviewing them. They listen to everything we say. Do we sound like we care about our teams? Are we concerned about their stress level? Are we concerned about staffing levels, breaks, lunches, balance? When we take care of ourselves, we can take better care of others. And people watch, our candidates are watching for smiles. They're paying attention to attitude and body language. And if we can take care of ourselves and let our candidates know that we're taking care of our teams, it's a great way to show these prospective colleagues just how important well-being is to everyone.
Well, thank you, Yvonne. So you've just kind of wrapped up one of the major reasons why participating in 10-minute well-being tips for managers is important, because the managers who are well and those teams that are well are going to be, sounds like, more successful in recruiting for a vacancy.
100%.
Okay, so let's move to orientation. Many of you, well, some of you might remember your first day of school, but many of you probably remember your first day of work. If it wasn't your first day of work here at Johns Hopkins, maybe it was the first day of work somewhere else. Most of us are a little bit nervous on our first day of work. And even though the interviews happened and your new team member probably asked around to see if they knew who you were as a manager and other people on the team, they are still coming to work that first day, that first week, that first month, a little bit concerned about whether or not they made the right choice. And there's some crazy high percentage of new employees who are thinking during those first 30 days whether or not they're going to stay or they're going to start looking for a new job. And we just heard from Yvonne how difficult it is to recruit. So you really want to hold on to these people. And so well-being starts on day one, and the simplest things like making introductions are really important. And it's not just introductions on day one, but it's introductions all week, all month. And try to give that person an opportunity to introduce themselves, like just kind of tee them up. Sometimes, I know I'm guilty of this, I get kind of excited and I want to say something about how great this person is, but it'll get the person a little bit settled if you give them an active role in their introduction and where they can be helpful in early meetings. Your goal is to essentially create a family-friendly feeling that's warm and inviting for your team member, your new team member, to join. You want this person to feel welcome. Of course, you can't make this happen all of a sudden, which is why you've been attending 10-minute well-being tips for managers for this whole time. But the more you work on this, the easier it's going to come across and the more authentic it's going to come across during that first day, during that first week, that your team is a team in the truest sense. And it's true that families feud and sometimes there's fights. It's really important that you look at the cause of those arguments and figure out how to get past them quickly. And at the time of onboarding and orientation, if there's still some friction somewhere, call it out and tell the team, hey, listen, we've got someone new starting, and it's really important that we make a good first impression. This person feels welcome, because if they don't, then they're more likely to leave, and we can go into the statistics on recruitment. I love this slide. You want to be a role model. You want to be a well-being role model where you can visibly engage in well-being activities. If you take a walking break at lunch, why don't you ask that new person on your team to walk with you? And it doesn't just have to be about movement or stress reduction or an activity. You're also a role model for how you treat people, for how you talk, the words you choose, your body language. You really want to project that upbeat and energetic feeling, because this person's going to be around you all the time. And at the end of that first week, you don't want that person to be like, wow, that person's kind of down, kind of negative. I'm not sure I want to be around that all the time. You want the opposite. Look for situations that might be a barrier to the well-being of this new person on your team. You might just have to have a frank conversation. Hey, this is how I practice well-being during the day. I make sure that I get up from my desk for 5 minutes every hour. At lunchtime, I listen to some music. How do you bring well-being into your workday? And if they're willing to share, you can look for opportunities to find some synergy and ask them or invite them to tell you, if you ever have any barriers to getting well-being into your day, I want you to tell me about it. If there's a Healthy at Hopkins program you want to attend, but it's not during your scheduled lunch break, tell me about it. Maybe we can trade with someone on the team. Let's try to work it out so that you can bring well-being into your day the way that you practice well-being. Now, for those of you who can remember back to episode 2, this picture should look familiar, and hopefully the message looks familiar as well. You need to take care of yourself, because if you come to work feeling well and showing a positive attitude and with energy, that's going to come through to your new employees. So as you're preparing for this new person to onboard, you really need to dig deep inside yourself and ask, how am I doing? And figure out what your needs are. Is your need to be outside because it's so cold you haven't really taken the plunge? Maybe you just need to bundle up a little extra. So do what you need so that that first day, that first week, that new employee is around someone that feels good, because otherwise, again, not going to sit well. Okay, we're at our agenda tips. You might consider assigning a buddy to this new employee. It's kind of nice to have someone there to turn to. Not everyone's so comfortable asking their boss every question. They might feel a little insecure. I don't want my boss to think I don't know what I'm doing. Or I'm not sure I should be asking my boss where the cafeteria is. So assign someone on the team to be a buddy, and not just in name, but in spirit as well. The buddy would preferably be proactive. Don't just be a buddy and wait for the person to talk to you. Be a buddy and have that person check in regularly with the new employees so that they feel they have a built-in support system and someone they can turn to and count on. You might want to ask for a well-being activity on your team that first week. That's a great way for your team to bond around well-being and for this new person to know that well-being is a priority. So we do have a link. Meg will put the PDF in the chat box We do have a link to the worksite wellbeing menu. For those of you who were here last week, you can ask for a progressive muscle relaxation exercise. There's a whole bunch of other options. Don't forget, we've got a couple of questions for you for a survey. Appreciate it. Next week, we're going to talk about having fun together, which is really, it's okay to do in the workplace as long as we're respectful and don't, cause any problems. We'll talk about it. Should be a fun episode. And our well-being resources. And I'm going to stop sharing my slides because I am over 10 minutes. Okay. Hello, everybody. Couldn't see all these faces for a while. Good to see everyone here. Who would like to kick us off on some questions? And by the way, Yvonne has graciously offered to take a question or two as well.
Dr. Sphero, if I have a few questions coming through the chat.
Yeah.
One is, especially now with the hybrid situation where we have employees working in different locations, what recommendations do you have around making sure that this person feels welcomed, knowing that they may have moments of feeling isolated or just disconnected, due to the nature of the workplace and where people—
Sure. Yeah, that's probably a challenge to start a new job and work remote, to feel connected and welcome and part of a team. I'll just do a little brainstorming off the top of my head. Those well-being menu options can be done virtually on the screen, so you can get your team together for a fun activity focused around well-being. Don't let the virtualness of it slow you down. You could meet this new employee to take a walk somewhere on whichever campus is close to you, or a park if the person is agreeable. You could have a walking meeting together instead of being on the Zoom, because maybe this person's not being used to being on Zoom all day. Maybe both of you get up out of your seat, put in your earbuds, and you walk and have that 30-minute meeting. And maybe it's not even a meeting. Maybe it's a meet and greet. Hey, we're going to spend 30 minutes talking about each other so we can get to know each other. Anybody else have any other ideas for how to make someone who's working remotely feel like they're part of the team, part of the community? We also have 15-minute meetups at noon that the person could feel like part of the bigger Hopkins community during those times.
Rich, I would offer that, sometimes when we're working remotely, we tend to interact around operational stuff, like what's the work we have to do together. And perhaps I would suggest prioritizing relational connection, so that when we are in contact on Zoom or whatever, we spend those first 5 minutes or whatever, just really touching in to see how people are doing, how they're feeling, and if there's any support they need from us.
Yes, definitely checking in is a great idea, Carolyn.
There's a comment in the chat that someone said, my team does a welcome email with a picture of the employee and a bio sent to the whole team to welcome them. Someone else said, we have a virtual welcome meet and greet with the team.
Oh, that's great. Both great ideas. Appreciate those participants today lending their tips.
Yep, and Yvonne, I shared that your team does lunch together on Zoom sometimes as a remote team, and it's actually really fun to see everyone.
Now, I thought about adding that to the list, but I was thinking, what if people are a little self-conscious about getting food stuck in their teeth and they're right there on camera? But yes, that is a great idea. People used to eat together, so maybe they're eating together safely.
And a monthly coffee chat where we talk about anything non-work related, and it helps keep in touch with one another.
When the pandemic started, we created a PDF document with probably a dozen virtual games that could be done over Zoom. And I don't remember where that is housed. If it's on the Office of Wellbeing website. But if anyone's interested in that, you could send Meg or I an email, and we could find where it is.
And just encouraging people to have their cameras on so that everyone can see one another.
Oh, great idea. That's right. I mean, it's going to be tough for people to feel like they're part of the team if they can't see who their buddies are. Good idea. So, I mean, I'll just say that we don't often think about recruitment and onboarding in the context of well-being, but well-being really permeates everything we do. If the people on our teams aren't feeling supported, if they don't feel well during their workday, the chances of them staying greatly diminish. And so protect this valuable asset. Yvonne was very clear that it is challenging to recruit new people. Protect your new valuable asset and those who are still with you by bringing well-being into the onboarding process to create a very good and strong first impression. Because when people leave, it's more often about their manager and their team than it is about the actual work. It's not just me saying it, this is what the statistics bear out. If there's no more questions, we'll call it a day, and hopefully I'll see all of you, and bring a friend next week when we talk about having fun together. Oh, Carolyn, you want to say something?
I wanted to point, there is a question, Rich, from Debbie, maybe for us, the whole group. How do we ask team members to turn on their cameras during meetings without offending them?
Yeah, you could send a text. If it's someone like, you know, a chat that's private. If it's someone who's regularly not turning on their team meeting and you're the manager, that's someone you need to talk to about it. It's an expectation. You can make it an expectation. If they're going to be working remotely, this is part of how we do business. Obviously, it's more difficult for those people who don't have cameras. Not every computer has a camera. I do believe there are accessories that can be purchased, and I think the supply chain has leveled out on that front. There was a big run on these accessible, these add-ons to computers, but they should be available now. Okay.
I was going to say we have
you again.
We have one more question.
Okay.
And this is about recruitment and around best practices. Is there anything when you are interviewing a candidate, is there any specific language or something that you should keep in mind when beyond just the normal interview questions to ensure that you're instilling well-being and showing them that it's part of your priority and or the culture here?
Yvonne, let's both answer. Do you want to go first?
So a couple thoughts. You know, one is I think that you can showcase what you as a leader are doing in your specific area to say, you know what, healthy lifestyle and well-being is so super important to us at Hopkins. And here's a couple of things that we do in this department, right? And kind of showcase that. So was the person specifically asking for what questions to ask?
I think it was more broad in nature, just general tips or just different ways to think about portraying well-being when you're going through that interview process with a candidate that's external.
Yeah, so my advice, and Rich, you can piggyback or offer your opinion on this certainly, but would just be to showcase what you are doing and what you have done and continue to do with your team. Because I think, it takes a village. It's not just the leader or the manager. It's, hey, this is what we do here, right? To kind of promote all those good things and let that candidate know this really is important. It's walking the talk, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to approach it. Another way is to share that the health of our employee community is one of our 6 priorities in our 5-year strategic plan, and that the institution takes it seriously. We have an Office of Wellbeing, and you can ask them a question that's non-threatening. You could ask them, how do you think that you could support, or how would you support well-being of our team, because it's important to us? And they don't have to share private information. They would just share what's okay with them, what they're comfortable sharing. You can ask a question without putting them in an uncomfortable position where they need to share private health information. We're not asking them, what's your blood pressure? What's your cholesterol level? How often do you walk? We're not going to ask them personal habits. We're going to ask them open-ended questions. If this is something you want to pursue, you can ask them open-ended questions about well-being as it relates to the workplace, because it is part of our institution.
And one more thing, and I know we're at time, but Rich, to your point, if this is the leader, you can certainly ask, and may I ask, and how have you promoted well-being in your last role at your organization? Can you provide an example of maybe what you instituted on your team? That is a perfect question to ask a candidate.
Yeah, and we're on a roll here, Yvonne. So, well-being is part of our business plan at Johns Hopkins Medicine. It is not just that it's part of a 5-year strategic plan and that we're doing 10-minute well-being tips. This year, every year for the last 7 years, well-being has been part of the strategic objectives that our leaders are measured by. And this year, in addition to the CDC scorecard, directors and above, they're being asked to include well-being on the agenda. So their team meeting agendas. So it is something that, while some leaders are uncomfortable discussing, hopefully this series and other resources are helping all of us get more comfortable talking about this, including with new employees and during the recruitment process. Okay, great conversation today. I really appreciate everybody's engagement. I hope you all have a safe and healthy week, and we'll see you back next Wednesday. But tomorrow we've got Ask the Expert at noon if you're interested. And I can't remember what the topic is. Sorry.